Charish Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Bible journey. We are still in Genesis, and today's reading will be Genesis 17 to 18. God changes Abram's name to Abraham, and a son is promised to Sarah. And also, Abram intercedes for Sodom and Gomorrah. If you have missed any of our previous videos, you can follow the link in the description below. Let's read. Genesis 17. Abram is named Abraham. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you, by which I will guarantee to give you countless descendants. At this, Abram fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you, and I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abram, Your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to the members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. Then God said to Abram, Regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah, and I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants. Then Abram bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become a father at the age of 100? He thought. And how can Sarah have a baby when she is 90 years old? So Abram said to God, May Ishmael live under your special blessing. But God replied, No, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abram. On that very day, Abram took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those he had bought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskins just as God had told him. Abram was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and Ishmael his son was 13. Both Abram and his son Ishmael were circumcised on that same day, along with all the other men and boys of the household, whether they were born there or bought as servants. All were circumcised with him. Genesis 18. A son is promised to Sarah. The Lord appeared again to Abram near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. One day Abram was sitting at the entrance to his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. "My Lord," he said, "if it pleases you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue on your journey." "All right," they said. "Do as you have said." So Abram ran back to the tent and said to Sarah, "Hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough and bake some bread." Then Abram ran out to the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. When the food was ready, Abram took some yogurt and milk and the roasted meat, and he served it to the men. As they ate, Abram waited on them in the shade of the trees. "Where is Sarah, your wife?" the visitors asked. "She's inside the tent," Abram replied. Then one of them said, "I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, "How could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such a pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is also so old?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'Can an old woman like me have a baby?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Abraham intercedes for Sodom. Then the men got up from their meal and looked out towards Sodom. As they left, Abram went with them to send them on their way. "Should I hide my plan from Abram?" the Lord asked. "For Abram will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. I have singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised." So the Lord told Abram, "I've heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah, because their sin is so flagrant. I'm going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know." The other men turned and headed toward Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked?" Why, you would be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same. Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right? And the Lord replied, If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the city for their sake. Then Abram spoke again. Since I have begun, let me speak further to my Lord. Even though I am but dust and ashes, suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for a lack of 5? And the Lord said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 righteous people there. Then Abram pressed his request further. Suppose there are only 40? And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. Please don't be angry, my Lord, Abram pleaded. Let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people are found? And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if I find 30. Then Abram said, Since I have dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20? And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Finally, Abram said, Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there? And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abraham, he went on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. I want to focus a little bit on Abraham's discussion with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. Notice how God was prepared to save the cities, even if there were only 10 righteous people. Only 10. We will see in our next reading, though, that unfortunately there were much less than 10, and God destroyed the wicked cities with fire and brimstone. If you would like to follow a verse-by-verse discussion of Genesis, have a look at the episodes listed in the description below. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope to see you again for our next reading. Vaya con Dios.